Okay, good morning. It's 9 o'clock and I'm going to call this meeting to order. I will ask Trustee Briggs to do the land acknowledgement.
In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, Sturgeon Public School Division would like to acknowledge and respect that we are living and working on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional homeland of ancestors of Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Sturgeon Public School Division is committed to respecting and honoring the traditional lands and working with our communities towards reconciliation.
Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Briggs, all in favor? Unanimous. Any errors or omissions that have come out of the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Trustee Dwyer, all in favor? Unanimous. We'll move on to 6.1, Education Planning Team presentation. Trustee Warren, Superintendent Warren.
That's close enough. Good morning, Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I would like to welcome our education planning team. So I will let them introduce themselves, but they are here to share the great work that they are doing.
Thank you. As a board, you've been very clear about having high expectations, and today we are grateful to bring to life the many ways that we are rising and striving towards continuous improvement. My name is Shannon Campbell-Requa, and I'm the Director of Education Planning.
My name is Nicole Farwell, and I'm the Curriculum Coordinator.
My name is Courtney Kerr. I'm the Educational Technology Lead Teacher.
For the record, we tested this and it worked just moments ago. Thank you. It's not working at all. Pardon me? This has been an elaborate plan to show you our troubleshooting in action. Today, we invite you to please watch for evidence of our team living the division's vision, mission, and values, actualizing the division's education plan, modeling best practice, creating active, hands-on, research-based learning in a variety of different settings, and making a direct impact for students. Our team works tirelessly to contribute to every outcome of our education plan, and our work contributes to every assurance domain. This year, we have returned to in-person engagements. In terms of stakeholder and parent engagements, we were able to bring together more than.
You went 2 slides. There's a lag when you click it, so it actually went 2 ahead instead of 1. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Pardon me. As I was saying, there are 6 engagements throughout our division that included over 195 participants, and we were able to, through this process, gather over 1,000 insights. The important work of collating and theming these insights is well underway, and I'm very excited to bring to you the common themes of the voice of parents throughout a division. Stakeholder engagement also includes capturing voices from students and in-person engagements and through student advisory and in-person group meetings at schools. We will also complement that with Sturgeon Public survey data, both for parents, staff, and students. Our team is responsible for the development of the AERR, and we contribute to the development of the education plan. We have the honor of supporting leaders in our division. Leadership support involves incredible pedagogy, bringing premier presenters to ensure that our leaders are on the cutting edge and have the very best. But we have also engaged this year in ensuring that our leaders have an opportunity to come together in community, that they feel supported, and for goodness sakes, they have a little fun along the way. So instead of having them learn about rigorous literacy instruction, we have them playing the literacy games that we hope to see come alive in classrooms. Instead of reading about First Nations worldview, we brought in an incredible presenter to teach them firsthand about Indigenous games and supplemented that with the curriculum spending around Indigenous games kits so that leaders would know firsthand what it looks like to be participating in these games and living the experiences and embodying that worldview. Class coming together as a team and having a little bit of fun while we're doing it. This holistic approach has been incredibly well received by leaders. And in terms of coming up with a quote, I literally couldn't pick because leaders could express that for the first time in a long time, they felt like they were building a team again. And that is a credit to our leadership and to this board. We run several cohorts that contribute to the continuous development of staff throughout the division. This year, SALT continues. I'd like to thank Jan Stephen for his contributions to this group. We bring together 15 participants and they participate in a 2-year cycle. What's incredible is the quality of the instructional leaders who are applying for this. As it first rolled out, there was a lot of shoulder tapping and encouragement to get participants. Now we have to filter through several resumes and we have to actually limit the participants because of the nature of the group. Leadership succession has been identified as a challenge throughout the province, and I'm so proud to say the members of this group are nothing short of exceptional. Our beginning teacher cohort included over 31 members this year. Understanding that we have a tremendous amount of beginning teachers division-wide, we have designed a connection point for them. We bring forth the division alignment through connection points. We provide support and we ensure that every beginning teacher in our division has a formal mentor and some release time so that they can work with their mentor to design and reflect on their practice. When I love this quote from our beginning teacher because I think it embodies our young teachers. The beginning teacher cohort has been super helpful in connecting with teachers at similar places in their careers. It reminds me that I'm not alone in navigating a new profession. In terms of SALT, a SALT participant described, SALT provides guidance, support, and valuable insights from experienced mentors. SALT helps foster growth and provides inspiration to journey into leadership.
considerably shorter here. All right, so this year our team has supported curriculum in Sturgeon by working with our learning coaches, building on our work in literacy and numeracy that's connected to the Learning Interruption Grant, and of course building and implementing plans for new curriculum as it has extended up to include grades 4 to 6. Sturgeon Public School learning coaches meet almost every month, and they participate in professional learning around instructional leadership, building teacher efficacy, as well as learning specific teaching strategies. This year's learning coaches continue to be an essential connection point between the division, our administration teams, and the classroom teachers. We've built on the work done in years past by bringing the learning coaches in as part of their school education plan development and implementation. For example, in Bon Accord, learning coaches supported the school-wide vision of creating academic purpose for all students through elbow-to-elbow work with their teachers, using division-supported resources and continued professional learning, building on the work that the division started last year with Shelley Moore. They've seen real improvement in their literacy and numeracy data as a result of their very hard work. This year, we continued to examine best practices in literacy instruction with classroom teachers. Sturgeon worked in collaboration with Dr. Miriam Ramsey and Michelle Benz again this year, adding both instructional leadership and writing to our partnership. As our data demonstrates, our foundational literacy scores are improving, and we do expect to see additional movement in the CC3 data in upcoming years as that foundational knowledge grows. It's a similar story with numeracy. Sturgeon Division has continued to build capacity with our classroom teachers in understanding the progression that students go through as they come to learn math. Division-supported resources such as Mathology and Fact Fluency Kits have supported this work. And in addition, learning coaches have worked alongside teachers to build class plans that are based on the results of the students in their class on the numeracy screeners. And our data demonstrates that this hard work is paying off, and we're beginning to move the needle for our students. And of course, the other primary area of focus is supporting new curriculum implementation. Like last year, we've been approaching implementation through 3 areas, which are professional development, curriculum working group, and resource purchasing. So this year, teachers are able to choose from over 30 sessions on a curriculum professional development menu. Over 100 teachers signed up in the first 48 hours. And sessions started running in February, and they'll run till the end of May. Our curriculum working groups are another way that we support curriculum implementation. This year, the groups have focused primarily on building assessment supports, as well as some common resource lists, such as a common literature list. And a small group of teachers work together to do a bit of a novel study on several different novels so that we can build an updated list for teachers to choose from. And as well, they looked through common manipulatives to use for each outcome in each grade of math. And finally, in addition to the professional learning and the development through our curriculum working group, we've purchased several resources that support new curriculum implementation, including those common math manipulatives for each class that came from the work done by the curriculum working groups. We've also built common science resource kits, and robots are being purchased for each grade to support those new computer science outcomes. This system of resource purchasing has ensured equity across our schools, and it's working to create a collaborative environment in and between our schools that supports curriculum implementation.
Our team's role regarding technology has primarily been one of support in the form of troubleshooting alongside other departments and teams. However, our role in this area has evolved to providing instrumental instructional support to teachers, administrators, and students. Managing licenses for division-supported programs continued from last year for online math and reading practice programs. We also have 6 teachers piloting Edwin, which is an online platform containing curriculum-linked content and interactive tools to engage students in core subjects. These teachers have received support from us to find content and navigate the platform with their students. As far as device and software support goes, to ensure that we have consistency and reliability in the iPad apps for students, an app request and vetting process was coordinated with technology services and has been shared with our schools. Technology services appreciates having a liaison between their department and teachers and have shared how much easier and more manageable we have made this process for them. New loft boards were installed in classrooms across our division, which prompted the need for teacher education. After spending time in schools to demonstrate how loft boards can be used, various how-to guides were created and are available on the Educational Technology Hub. Our learning centers are currently piloting Schoology, which is a learning management system where teachers can post assignments and materials for students to access in ways that Google Classroom cannot provide. The system integrates with PowerTeacher Pro, allowing teachers to access everything in one place. Together with the SIS team and Learning Center staff, we are navigating this platform and learning how it can meet everyone's needs. This year, our division also purchased licenses for the Reading Comprehension Assessment Tool, or RCAT. This tool contains various reading comprehension practice sets that teachers can assign to students based on the students' reading levels. To support this program, user guides and a webpage on the Assessment Hub were created for teachers and administrators to access. Working alongside technology services, we have vetted and approved many sites that students can sign into using their Google account and support their learning. Further, when multi-factor authentication was turned on for staff Google and Microsoft accounts, how-to guides were created and direct support was provided to all staff to ensure their access was uninterrupted. In anticipation of our transition to Google First, we created a communication plan that includes a one-page overview and how-to guides to help teachers organize Gmail. For supporting digital assessments and reporting, in the fall, Alberta Education released a new digital platform called Veretta for provincial assessments. Although administrators were the only ones to receive communication about this platform, we have been able to quickly learn about it and create supporting documents for administrators, teachers, and students, which are updated regularly as the platform changes and are available on the Assessment Hub. Instruction has been provided in classrooms to students and teachers to help them navigate this platform prior to the scheduled provincial assessments. In coordination with the SIS team, a test server for PowerTeacher Pro has allowed us to create sample grade books and further our knowledge to guide teachers with grade reporting, which will be valuable as assessment practices evolve. AI has taken our education world by storm. To support administrators with AI, documents on suggested practices for schools and students, along with references to materials from well-known leaders in AI education field, have been shared on the Educational Technology Hub. Teachers and EAs have received tailored suggestions for AI tools that can meet their professional needs. Our division is also represented among other Alberta school leaders in AI conversations and future collaborations. Computer Science Education Week and Hour of Code in December also focused on AI, and various activities were shared with teachers to make student learning relevant during this event. In February, all students at Gibbon School participated in a hackathon. This event was sponsored by Callisto and is designed to help students solve data science problems by analyzing data. The activities became increasingly difficult, but engaged students for the duration of the event. Although media literacy and digital citizenship teachings tend to exist alongside student engagement with technology, activities were shared with teachers to integrate media literacy and digital citizenship into their classrooms during Media Literacy Week. These activities also included opportunities for teachers and schools to publicly share how their students are incorporating these skills into their learning, and these activities are accessible year-round. As far as STEM education goes in our division, we kicked off our March with a group of Sturgeon Public educators attending the Plug into Learning conference, which focused on incorporating different technologies into all classrooms. These educators also collaborated on divisional STEAM documents, which include a guiding framework, device and skill progressions, and a startup checklist, which will all be shared with staff upon completion. One teacher shared, "I cannot adequately express how great the experience was and how thankful I was to not only grow in my understanding, but also to collaborate with colleagues from our division." Our efforts as a STEAM team will come to fruition at the 5th Sturgeon STEAM Games in May, where students will engage in authentic challenges focused on outer space. STEAM Games promotes many of the skills we want to instill in our students through working collaboratively, thinking creatively, and designing critically. This event will also include technology demonstrations and connections to industry, and we look forward to sharing the success of this event upon its completion.
Thank you. This year, Division PD has been rigorous in partnership with ERLC, the ATA, and Alberta Education. We've been able to offer incredible opportunities for professional learning. I'd like to highlight our most recent Division PD Day from the lens of Indigenous education. This year, we were able to provide a keynote panel. These were our PhD candidates from the University of Alberta, teachers and educators who were able to share an authentic experience with all staff division-wide. It was a day I was truly proud to be part of Sturgeon Public Schools. The morning also incorporated a student drum song. And in communication with the student and their parent, that was a transformative activity for that student. He was so proud to be able to share his culture with the entire staff. And it was an incredibly emotional for his family, for him to participate in that way. We were also able to tap the shoulder of our student success coach to provide a personalized land acknowledgement, and our very own Jerome Chabot was able to share a fiddle teaching and song. I wanted to share this quick video mostly so that you can hear a quick snippet. You won't likely be able to see much. Or not. Please imagine the incredible, inspiring fiddle music by our very own Jerome Chabot, which added a liveliness and added to the energy of the morning. Okay, in terms of Indigenous education, community connections has been a continuous focus for us. Strengthening our relationships with our closest neighbors has truly been a celebration this year. Our partnership is thriving, and we are in a depth of gratitude to Kapota Cow Education Center and Alexander First Nation. Our students have had the ability to participate in multiple events over the course of the year. It's incredibly difficult to select the images to share with you and the examples to highlight. I think some important ones to make sure that are on your radar is that we have participated in multiple culture camps to this point and will continue to do so. We were invited and attended the high school conference, which included an overnight camping trip. We are continuing our regular leadership connection points, student success meetings. We've offered collaborative PD and have actually traveled to KEC to provide training to their teachers in that spirit of mutual relationship building. We have planned pen pal connections. There have been inter-school sport contests and a list of other activities that are really bringing that neighboring partnership alive. Language learning is happening because of this partnership, and the high school for the first time in known history will offer Cree language learning this year through Aboriginal studies. Additionally to this, we also have support from other members from other nations across the province. Terry Littlechild came and with a group of students set up the teepee that was erected in front of Sturgeon Composite High School, which served as an incredible visual representation of the work. But the more meaningful work is happening within the building, and the supports and continuous dedication to Indigenous education is alive and well. I could go on. However, I also need to discuss with you Indigenous student support. So we continue to focus our efforts in supporting students with in-school support pieces. Student success coaches provide holistic support and focus on academic success. This allows students to navigate systemic barriers and receive elbow-to-elbow coaching. We also employ 6 educational assistants throughout the division. We have the development of student leadership groups at Sturgeon Composite High School, Lillian Schick School, Four Winds, and Camilla School. So for the first time this year, We have groups of students who are working to provide leadership in the schools. And there's even a collaborative effort. So students from multiple schools are joining together to plan the first ever National Indigenous Peoples Day celebration that will bring together more than one school. I was able to participate in their first planning meeting and to see the students come quite nervous and leave thrilled with excitement and return to their schools and spoke to their principals about how they wanted to fundraise, how they wanted to bring groups of students together, and hearing those principals describe that that was the first time that they had seen that type of leadership from students was incredibly, it really was an indication that the work we are doing is impacting students. Finally, I'd like to touch on the call to action cohort. This cohort continues to grow. We have over 30 members, and it represents a variety of staff from across the division. This year, Partners from Alexander have agreed to participate as honored guests and advisors, and they have extended an invitation for our cohort to have a learning experience that includes cultural teachings and a feast. We've connected with academics and elders, and the image to the left is an example of going into community where we participated in a learning lodge and learned from Elder Bob Cardinal and Dr. Dwayne Donald. The other example is the way we are bringing Indigenous lens into pedagogy and curriculum and instruction. This is an example of a teaching from Etienne Moussus Lafferty, where she talks about how we can make the bringing to life Indigenous education can be simple and straightforward for all educators by focusing on place, people, and processes. This makes learning accessible and allows us to share the learning from the cohort to the rest of our schools. Thank you for your time and attention today. It has been an honor to share the work that we have done so far this year.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate you highlighting your work and your achievements to our mission, vision, and values. Yeah, so I just ask if there's any trustees that have any questions or comments that they direct them through the chair to Superintendent Warren. Stacy.
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. Sorry. Fantastic presentation as always. I just wanted to make sure when it comes to AI and that technology advancement, because it does happen quite quickly, that our education services team communicate through our superintendent if there's any advocacy points that we can take forward at the provincial level, because we may need some regulation, but we don't know what that looks like yet. You guys will be the ones on the ground that sees where there's gaps and where there's risks and pitfalls that maybe students might walk into. So I would just ask that please communicate that up to us as it's on top of mind for all boards and trustees across the province. And that would be our role in that. And I would love to hear any feedback in that vein.
Janine? Janine Pequin, Ward 1. I don't really have a question. I'm interested in the follow-up for your numeracy for the K to 3s, right? Just with the new curriculum, they identifying the at-risk, and to just kind of track that as we are introducing new curriculum to see if the at-risk goes up or whatever. Like, it's just not a question. Love that that slide's on there, but love to see a follow-up with some tracking on those skills by our kiddos.
Now the education planning team will be coming back to do their numeracy report. And yes, we are tracking that data. It'll be coming to you. And again, remember, we are reporting this to Alberta Ed, so it is being tracked, and there is a report further on in the agenda.
Thank you. We will move on to 7.1, 25-26 school calendar. Shauna?
Thank you, Chair. I will turn this over to the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, Lisa Lacroix.
Lisa Lacroix, Associate Superintendent of Human Resources. You will find attached the memo for the new school year calendar for 25-26. As per EP 235, the 2025-2026 calendar was sent out for review by TBAC, QB staff, and school councils, sorry. Feedback was received and an adjustment was made to the last day for students. We also checked the diploma exams. These were not affected by the change. A question was raised about the venue for the Sturgeon Comp grad. This venue is booked 1 year in advance. And September 30th staff will not attend work as this will be a non-operational day. A motion is required and administration is prepared to answer any questions.
Can I get someone to put forward the motion? Trustee Murray Elliott.
Mary Elliott, Ward 4. I move that the Board of Trustees approve the 2025-2026 school calendar as presented at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting.
Okay, with the motion on the floor, does anybody have any questions on the motion or need clarification? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question that the Board of Trustees approve the 2025-2026 school calendar as presented at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting. All in favor? Carried unanimously. 7.2. Um, 2024 to 2027 draft capital 3-year plan. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I will be passing this over to our Associate Superintendent Corporate Services, as well as Director of Facilities.
Sean Nicholson, Associate Superintendent Corporate Services. As presented, the trustees can see our capital plan that we have put lots of work into. It has essentially 2 priorities on it. We have provided the plan based on kind of data inputs, as you can see on page 3. When looking at capital projects, the 4 categories we look at are standing maintenance and renewal programs, enrollment utilization, health and safety in our schools, and community partnerships that are available. On page 3, it will speak about how we have collected the data and how each of the schools fit into that. And based on that information, we have selected 2 projects to put forward. The first priority is a Gibbons and Landing Trail solution, where we will be requesting a K-9 school with an 860 capacity. The deferred maintenance in the 2 schools is quite high at $18.5 million. And the current capacity is slightly higher, so we will be slightly right sizing. The community of Gibbons is planning growth in their community, but even considering the factors they have presented to us with their enrollment growth, we can slightly right size, because currently as is, our 2 buildings are at 925. We made a slight adjustment from our previous discussions around the capital plan, just to accommodate some input from the trustees. Doing 1 building does have some benefits in terms of administrative savings, as well as not having such issues with the grade configurations. So it's a little bit easier to manage, and conversations with how we could plan the building as well too, and to conversations with Alberta Education Capital Planning. They are aiming for us to be around that 80 to 90% utilization area, 85 to 90%. So we just had to kind of adjust that to make sure we were within that. And then our number 2 priority is Ecole Morinville. Just a replacement school to help change the grade configuration as well to move some of the enrollment from Four Winds there to reduce the utilization and kind of spread it out amongst the two schools. I will leave it for any questions unless Director Holcomb has anything to mention.
Thank you, Sean. I just wanted to talk about the data collection and how it was analyzed and the amount of time that was put into this. There was a lot of thought put into combining the schools, and a lot of the information and what we've created here came from the town's projections for their population growth. And it's been countless hours put into those meetings to develop the plan. And I think it's a good plan to possibly get some funding. That's really it.
Can I get someone to put a motion forward? Trustee Pequin.
Sorry, I move that that was the motion. Good heavens. That the Board of Trustees approve the 3-year capital plan as presented at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting.
With the motion on the floor, are there any questions or concerns? Trustee Buga.
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. Just to confirm, I know with the new process of funding that the government has rolled out, having the stages of planning and design phase and all that kind of thing, is there still room to adjust the plan with for Gibbons based on, I know that there's a lot of moving parts as it's dependent on the town of Gibbons itself and that rec center being built. Is there still, if we are granted the, say, planning or design dollars, is there still movement, or do we have to stick with exactly what we have written, or can that be a bit fluid depending on the situation?
Thank you, Trustee Buga. That's actually an excellent question, because we actually did have a meeting on, when was that? Monday, and they did go over that process. And so I will turn it over to our Associated Corporate Services just to discuss that.
Sean Nicholas, Associate Superintendent Corporate Services. Just for clarification, what do you mean by change? Like go back to 2 schools or?
Mostly just that the configuration may need to change based on how the rec center is built in general. So any type of movement on what the configuration looks like there, if that is still something that can be changed, or if we are locked into something.
Okay, so the configuration of the building is all part of the design phase. So how we want to loop that in with the current structure. If we wanted to shift our plan to go back to 2 buildings per se, we'd have to resubmit that next year because we wouldn't probably have enough dollars based on this submission to do that. That's also why we went with this option, because it is also a little bit cheaper than doing 2 separate schools just for the building costs as well too. So it's a little bit more enticing to the government that way. But how we design the building based on the budget is totally kind of up to us, and we actually have to sign off on whatever is decided. So they can't move forward if we don't do that. So that would be for us to kind of do within those confines.
Superintendent Warren.
Yeah, and just to follow up, because that is a wonderful question, Trustee Buga, that's also part of with the community engagement. So as we move to that next step, because the capital projects have already been announced. And so it'll be coming into this fall when we will be looking at our community engagement, because again, how the building is, what the actual physical layout looks like will be part of a collaborative engagement, community engagement from both the town side and ours. And that can be completed well before approval. And so we'll be getting input from the town also as to what the rec center, et cetera, will look like, but we will be going to the community for that.
Trustee Briggs.
I'm a little kind of torn with this capital plan. I don't think the board was given enough time to really discuss. Our capital plan didn't include Landing Trail last year, so I'm not sure how it would include Landing Trail this year. We're going by projections, and it's turning to be very political with the town of Gibbons, and I'm not sure if we're losing our sight on what's best for students. One of our schools is actually in poor condition in our division, and it's not even being looked at this moment. So I'm not sure if I'm in favor of this.
Trustee Dwyer.
Joe Dwyer, Ward 3. And I also don't know if we've had enough discussion. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but around the Bonnecourt School, because that'll be really close to this one, like it's down the road, basically, and how that would come into play with this new facility. So that's just one curiosity that I have that I know we talked about in general, but I don't know if we've looked at that option, all our options well enough yet.
Trustee Pequin.
I appreciate this year is an anomaly. Sorry, Jeanine Pequin, Ward 1, and we didn't have a lot of time with it. I do like that in the last 2 weeks, you've taken our feedback from the CAL and kind of changed the scope up a little bit and took out some charts that I didn't understand. So like I said, I appreciate the short turnaround this year. Next year, I hope that we have a little more time with it, but I like it and it's easy to read and it speaks in real language and not facility and government speak. So I appreciate it.
Trustee Buga.
Stacy Buga, Ward 5. I feel like that we actually did have quite a bit of time with this. This is what came out of the value scoping, and that was, when was that? Over a year ago? 2 years ago in the spring, I think. This is essentially what we've been talking about for the last 2 years. I don't feel surprised by this. This document, we haven't seen until recently due to, making sure that we have the right people in the right places, getting the projects together. I feel confident that there are some, unintended consequences whenever a new school is built. And as Trustee Dwyer kind of alluded to, is what's the impact on our surrounding communities. And I know that we did have some conversation around that. I feel confident in that this is our best chance to support growth in our communities. And I would hate to miss an opportunity to submit this by March 31st if there's potential that we can move ahead, because this really, the town of Gibbons is dependent on us supporting what they're doing as well. So to me, I think this is a really important community project as our #1 priority.
I appreciate the work that Associate Superintendent of Corporate Services has put into it, and as well as the team in operations. So thank you. Yeah, I agree with Trustee Buga. There was, from the value scoping, actually one of the solutions was to take the 2 schools into one. It was the the most economical choice, instead of replacing 2 schools, because Landing Trail had been #5. And that, thank you again, like Trustee Pequin said, for hearing what the board had said and taking the solution to a K-9 for the community. Yep, go ahead, Associate Superintendent.
So be Associate Superintendent Corporate Services, Sean Nicholson. I'll apologize for any confusion. But on page, it was a long capital plan last year. It was a big document, but on page 11, it does highlight that as part of our collaborative partnership opportunity, the division and the town of Gibbons are exploring building one single new school, pre-K to 9, replacing both Gibbons School and Landing Trail School. So it was in the document last year, so I will apologize if there's any confusion on our end, but kind of what we went with as part of the information we had.
Trustee Dwyer.
Joe Dwyer, I'm gonna vote for this. I think it's something we have to put forward. I just don't, I think in the future, that conversation needs to be there a little bit more and a little bit more into it. So I just want to make sure I like the work that's been done and I like the plan. In no way I'm trying to be negative with the Bonaccord thing. I just don't know if we talked enough about it. So anyways, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question that the Board of Trustees approve the 3-year capital plan as presented at the March 2024 public board meeting. All in favor? Unanimous. 7.4, Board Policy 300. School. Oh, see, I just checked that one off and thinking it was the one before. My apologies. 7.3, Board Policy 110, welcoming, inclusive, safe, and healthy environments. Superintendent Warren.
Chair Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So policy 110 is a board policy that on the policy tracker, it is reviewed annually. So this policy was reviewed. It came to, and our dates, sorry. It came to the February 14th Committee of the Whole for the board to review for first reading, and then to the March 6th Committee of the Whole for a second reading. And as part of the review, administrative procedures are reviewed alongside the policies. And as per board feedback, that both the scope of the policy and the administrative procedure, it was broadened to include the school community, as this board felt that if we are your governance statement on safe, healthy and inclusive environments, that you wanted to ensure that was for the entire school community that also included volunteers. So the AP was updated and the policy was also updated. And just to remind the board that also that a new AP was also introduced. So this policy is here, the board with the updates, the amendments to include volunteers and community members. And so it does require board approval.
Can I get someone to put forward the motion? Trustee Buga.
Stacey Buga, Ward 5. I move that the Board of Trustees approve Board Policy 110, welcoming, inclusive, safe, and healthy environments as presented at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting.
Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question that the Board of Trustees approve Board Policy 110, welcoming, inclusive, safe, and healthy environments as presented at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting. All in favor? Carried unanimously. .4, Board Policy 300, school-based decision-making. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So the recommendation is that the board rescinds policy 300, school-based decision-making. And this policy was reviewed, was brought to the March 6th Committee of the Whole. And just a reminder that there is a new AP that's been developed for a role of school administration, and that replaced the AP 210 school-based decision-making to ensure that principals and vice principals have a clear procedure to outline their responsibilities. And so the recommendation is that this policy is rescinded.
Can I get someone to put forward the motion? Trustee Buga.
Stacey Buga, Ward 5. I move that the Board of Trustees rescind Board Policy 300, school-based decision-making as recommended at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting.
Any questions on the motion? Trustee Buga.
Just a comment on the motion, if you don't mind. I just want to acknowledge the work of administration in making sure that our policies are staying in governance, and or the policies that are staying in governance are governance related, and the ones that are operational are being moved to APs, procedures that are operational and within the scope of the superintendent and administration. So I appreciate that work being done.
Trustee Pequin.
Shocking. Janine Pequin, Ward 1. I don't know about this one. Like, I like the board supports schools, councils, school-based staff, parents, students. Taking that, I know it's in the role of the board and the superintendent of schools. I like policies, and I know we talked about it, and I don't know. I'm uneasy with letting it go, but yeah, I don't know. Just the last paragraph of the policy, but it's captured otherwhere, so it's fine. It's fine. I don't know why I had to add anything.
Seeing no further questions, I'll call the question that the Board of Trustees rescind Board Policy 300 school-based decision-making as recommended at the March 20th, 2024 public board meeting. All in favor? Carried unanimously. 7.5 omnibus motion for board policies 405, 415, 420, and 425. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So these policies are all around finance, and they do fall under corporate services. So these policies, they were reviewed. You can see that under policy 225, that they are captured for the roles, board's role of governance in other areas, and that these did come forward in committee of the whole for discussion as a board. And I would like to turn it over to the Associate Superintendent of Corporate Service.
Thank you, Superintendent. Sean Nicholson, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. So yes, as the superintendent alluded to, most of these are operational based or outlined in the Education Act. So that's why they're being recommended for being rescinded. I have any questions?
Can I get someone to put forward the motion? Trustee Pequin.
Jean Pequin, Ward 1. I move that the Board of Trustees approve the following omnibus motion to rescind the following board policies. Board Policy 405, Budget Development and Transparency, Policy 415, Policy 420, and Policy 425.
Any questions or comments on the motion? Trustee Murray Elliott.
Trish Murray Elliott, Ward 4. And somewhat similar to Janine's previous comments, this one I'm having a little bit of problem letting go with 405 just because it has to do with budget, which is one of our most important duties as trustees. And you know, whether or not it is captured in policy 235 and in AP 400, I think the important thing is that we really do our jobs to ensure that there is, as it says in policy 235, that the board establishes priorities at the outset of the budget process, just so we don't end up with a situation where we don't have enough time to provide input into the outcomes. But that being said, it is captured, but we just have to make sure that we're following the AP and the policy.
And I just want to reassure the board and the public that policies are our job, so we would have to follow policy. So it's in policy 225, and if we don't follow it, then we're breaking protocol and trustee code of conduct. Trustee Buga?
Stacy Bugle, Ward 5. I also want to share, just for the record, I suppose, that all of these have been discussed at committee of the whole meetings. They have been presented to us, and in the public minutes for those meetings, it does show that we have had some robust conversation around these. It's certainly not like we let policies disappear without fulsome review and discussion of them, just in case there is public watching and wondering how, four policies can get rolled into one omnibus motion. It's because they have all been thoroughly discussed at the board table.
Okay, I'm going to call the question that the Board of Trustees approve the following omnibus motion to rescind the following board policies. Board Policy 405, Budget Development and Transparency. Board Policy 415, Local Authorities Pension Plan. Board Policy 420, Income Tax Deductions, Receipt of Donations Received by the Division. And Board Policy 425, Revenue from Property Tax Sources. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. Moving on, 8.1. IMR CMR expenditure report. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I would like to turn this over to the Associate Superintendent of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Superintendent. Sean Nicholson, Associate Superintendent, Corporate Services. Before I pass it on to our Director of Facilities, I just want to highlight, we put the past 5 years of funding on here. So I just want to highlight the progressive drop in that funding, because I think it's important for us to advocate for. As you can see, 5 years ago, we were getting about 1.6, and it's kind of reduced to about 1 million between IMR and CMR. So I kind of just wanted to highlight that. As you can see, the projects are listed and estimated costs for this coming year, but I will pass it over to our Director of Facilities to talk further about those.
Thank you. Steve Holcomb, Director of Facilities. I'm just going to go through the report real quick here and then take it to questions. So we put a background for IMR and CMR here and some of the criteria you need to have projects in that funding on the first page. And then we talked about the timelines for reporting. They actually don't line up with our fiscal year for CMR, but IMR does. So the reporting times are different on those. And then as Sean talked about the funding we've been getting, the trends. One thing to note is that inflation continues to go up and construction over COVID was 22% a year. So this is a concern of ours moving forward. And then on an average year, we're about 12.5% inflation in construction annually. So that being said, on the third page, we've highlighted all of the projects that have been approved. There's 26 of them in total. There are some projects that have very long lead times for equipment, up to 12 weeks. So some of these may need to be just purchased equipment and then move them into the next year, but that's something we'll determine as we're moving forward. That's really it for me. Questions?
Trustee Pequin.
Janine Pequin, Ward 1. So when you say these are the 26 projects that have been approved, you mean like your facilities department has gone out, looked at the schools, these are the priorities, these are what you guys have determined to spend these dollars on?
Steve Holcomb, Director of Facilities. Yes, so we these projects are built on health and safety first, primarily abatement of hazardous materials to keep people safe in the schools, end of life equipment. There's some panel projects, for instance, you'll see in here where we can't get parts for anymore. We have some stock, but to do these panel projects would give us more stock for the other schools that have aging equipment. And yes, we've gone through, created a scope of work, created specifications, create drawings where we need to, get consultants when we need them. We've also talked to the administrators of the schools and asked for their input for more projects. Whether they're looked at this year or not will be determined in the next couple of months, and if they can get done in time for September. So there's a lot of analytical, data we pull, and we go through it very carefully. And of course, it's the amount of funding we have that we're working towards.
Trustee Peckman.
If I can just follow up with that, I appreciate the little bit of proactiveness of changing the panels out so we have spare parts for ones we don't change out, and the abatements. And like, I'm not complaining about this at all. Just want to know how it came about, and it looks good. It looks, like I said, the proactiveness is nice to see.
Trustee Briggs.
I wish this report was 2 pages long and we could do everything in the division. And I understand there are priorities. Can you explain to me why Gibbons School has 2 boiler replacements?
Certainly. Last year, when I went through the schools, when I first arrived, I noticed there was 1 boiler in each mechanical room. If that boiler goes down, school goes cold. So when we had one go down in October, and we were lucky to find a boiler in Edmonton. Took us a 2-day turnaround to get it up and running to provide heat. But now we've installed 3 smaller boilers that are all running at a lower percentage. So for energy conservation, we're running about 40% with 3 of them, rather than running one at 85 or 90% in the cold weather, which, like I said, if it breaks down, we have no backup. One of the 3 boilers could run that zone at any time. So these other mechanical rooms you see are the same situation. So if they go down, the zone that they're feeding go down as well.
So most of our schools have a backup then, is what I'm hearing.
Well, that's what we're working towards. Yeah. So these are end of life. They're over end of life. The other buildings, they're aging, but they're not as critical as these. So we're starting at the worst.
And can you explain what a dry system replacement is? I don't understand what that is.
So there's 2 types of sprinkler systems in Guthrie. There's a wet system that's fully loaded all the time within the warm space of the school. And then there's a dry system up in the cold attic. So it doesn't freeze. When or if there's ever a fire up in the attic, the alarm will go off, and then we'll pump water into the system and load it, and the sprinkler will come on. The dry system at Guthrie needs annual repair. It's a maintenance. It requires a certain amount of funding every year to keep it up and running. It's a critical life and safety system. So we've chosen to put it out for tender to replace the pipe. It's a very thin wall pipe.
Trustee Dwyer.
Just for information, and don't disagree with this, but where would playgrounds, if we were going to contribute to a playground as the, where would they fit it?
I mean, Superintendent Warren.
I will turn this over to the Associate Superintendent of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Superintendent Warren. Quick answer is nowhere. This IMR CMR funding cap isn't supposed to be used for playgrounds. Playground sign, we don't get any money for playgrounds. I think recently at our school council, we were advocating for them to advocate for playground funding. The only funding we get is when we start a new building, we get that $250,000 to put in a playground. And then after that, we get no money to maintain it or replace any parts of it.
So I think I got it, but so if we were to just say there was a real safety issue with the playground, if we were to put it on this list, it would probably not even be looked at, or they'd say that's not supposed to be on that list.
Superintendent Warren.
That would have to come from if that was the will of the board, but it would not be coming out of this, that that the board would need to direct me as superintendent to find the dollars elsewhere to allocate to playgrounds, because it would not be allowed to be on IMR CMR.
Thank
It
you.
never has been able to.
Yep.
Trustee Briggs?
And I guess my only concern with this report is I don't know what has been done or what's still waiting to be done. So is it possible to get a report with a little bit more information on the timeline of completed, not completed, waiting for parts? Just so we as a board know how our funding is working here. And I guess another concern I have is of course, Lillian Schick is in poor condition. And how we're allocating funds to our number one capital project. Are we doing a renovation? I wouldn't do a renovation in my house if I was tearing it down in a couple of years. So how much money are we putting into something when it's our number one capital plan?
Oh, Jesus.
Can I just ask for clarification if this is the will of the board? Because if this is information that the entire board wants to come back, this report, because that will take time. So I need to know, are you directing me as superintendent as a board to bring back more information?
Okay, so I'll go around. Joe, do you want more detailed information?
At this time, I'm not sure. I would hope that all be considered in the work you've done, so. Thinking it has been, so I'm not sure. I'd say no probably at this time.
I'm gonna say no because I don't feel we get reports on CMR and IMR and where we are financially. I don't need to know when projects are done. I need to know if there's gonna be delay and we need to hold money. Trustee Buga?
I would agree. We receive the funding from the government for things that need to be done, and I have faith that they're getting done, and you'll let us know if they're not, or again, if there's, holdover money that has to be saved in the budget. But other than that, I wouldn't require further information.
Trustee Murray Elliott?
And I don't think I need more detailed information. I think my question is at a higher level, that the fact that our funding keeps dropping for both IMR and CMR, and how close are we to not even having enough funding to cover the basics of keeping things running, and to support the necessary work. That's more my concern.
Trustee Pecklin?
I don't think I need a more detailed information. I anticipate this is going to be a report that's going to come forward on a yearly basis. And I anticipate during our facilities updates, we are going to get progress updates that this has been checked off or we're waiting on parts for this. So I feel like next year we're going to have a whole new report of a whole new bunch of things. I trust your team that you've taken the critical things that need to be done and added them to here. So I feel like I'm good. I don't need anything else. Like I said, with the follow-up updates that I have full confidence will happen.
So I'll answer Superintendent Warren's and then go back to Trustee Briggs' second question. No, we don't. The will of the board isn't for more detailed, but we still want to get our quarterly updates on CMR and IMR or anything that may become emergent. And then can you answer Trustee Briggs' question about putting money into something we're replacing?
I can turn that over to Stephen. I do want to follow up though, because Trustee Murray Elliott, that is a great point. And I know when you guys are working with ASBA and PSBA, our deferred maintenance has been an issue for a very long time. And that's why with this report, it does show over the 5 years. And so if you are looking for your role as advocates to talk to working with other boards, et cetera, to push for IMR, CMR dollars to actually help us keep our buildings running, that is something that we will continue to do. Because that is the purpose of this report also. And I can turn it over for that other question.
Thank you, Steve Holcomb, Director of Facilities. So I can speak to the Gibbons question. everything on here is emergent and health and safety, other than the painting of the doors. And those are critical because of the state the doors are in. So it's a refresh. But the boilers, the PA system, and the abatement of the ceiling tiles and the elbows on the mechanical stuff is absolutely critical to get done. The boilers themselves, if that school was to be dismantled, can come out and go into another school with aging boilers. They're easy to take out again. So really, we're going to use that equipment elsewhere if necessary.
Superintendent Warren?
And I will just clarify for the board with your capital plan, even in the spring. So basically a year from now, if we were approved, it's between 4 and 5 years that you're looking at and a build of a school. So it's still a long ways out when we consider it's on our capital plan, but the approvals have already gone through for capital projects.
Thank you very much. We will bring Ed Services. We're going to move to 8.2 numeracy report. And I will turn it over to Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. I'll let the team get settled. Thank you to the Ed Services team for coming back in, and they will now provide the board with the numeracy report.
Thank you, Shannon Campbell-Requa, Director of Education Planning. Today, we are pleased to provide an overview of the numeracy intervention and support in Sturgeon Public Schools. This year, students participated in Alberta Education numeracy assessments. These assessments take place in September, January for grade 1 students, and in May. They assess a broad range of skills, but it's important to note that they assess skills on a progression of numeracy learning and aren't necessarily related to mathematics curriculum. Essentially, these tests test, do students have the foundational math skills that they need to be successful? Students are deemed at risk depending on how they measure to provincially determined norms. We also have some data to share in terms of the progress our students are making with these assessments.
Okay, so I just want to draw your attention just to the table that we have just at the bottom of the first page there. And I just want to walk through a few of those numbers just to really highlight how the division is doing. So if you notice in the grade 1 percentage at risk, so last year we had 33% of our kiddos at risk, and now we have at January 2024 of this year, we have 18% of our students at risk. So we have a 15% improvement year over year in terms of how our grade 1s are doing on this particular assessment. In grade 2, you'll notice from September 2022 to 2023, our students had a 10% improvement. And in grade 3, from 2022 to 2023, we had an 11% improvement. One number that's of particular interest is how our grade 3 students in 2022 did, which we had 28% of our students at risk. And then if you look over at the grade 4 students in September of 2023, so that would be those grade 3 students who moved to grade 4, we noticed that there's actually a 1% increase. So essentially no change. And a hypothesis we do have there is that with the shift in curriculum and the increased rigor of the grade 3 curriculum, that there perhaps was less opportunity to focus on those foundational numeracy skills, how kids come to learn math, and an increased focus on those curricular outcomes, particularly in the first year of implementation when teachers are trying to learn it and get comfortable with it. So that is something we'll continue to pay attention to as the curriculum moves up and as our teachers, grow in their understanding and work, and as well as our students continue to be immersed in this new curriculum and should come through with those increased skill development. So it's definitely something we're paying attention to. And then you'll notice our French immersion data continues to have Great improvement in our grade ones, so 26% improvement from January 2023 to 2024. And our grade twos and our grade threes, we're seeing essentially no change. And so that's part of that work we've been doing with our French immersion working group. So just really becoming comfortable with the French immersion new math curriculum, with resources. The change in curriculum has been a great opportunity to create some standardization of our French immersion resources, which sometimes is lagging behind that English piece because it's a smaller market. But we've had a great opportunity to purchase a standard math resource for our French immersion teachers, and we're hopeful with that, combined with the collaborative work that we're doing, will really work to move the needle for our students in upcoming years.
The Learning Interruption Grant provided funds that included provisions for numeracy intervention. This year, Sturgeon Public Schools received just over $100,000. And with this money, we've been able to hire 3 literacy and numeracy intervention teachers. They provide daily pullout instruction for up to 6 weeks to grades 4 and 5 students in a pullout model. Students are selected for this opportunity based on the screening data and in consultation with teacher recommendations to ensure that the individual students selected will experience the greatest amount of success.
So just in terms of the teaching and leading and the implemented supports that we've provided for that continued math instruction, we've purchased Mathology and Mathologie, that's my French there, licenses for all math teachers K to 6 in our division. We have introduced Fact Fluency Kits in kindergarten through grade 6, which is just a resource that really focuses on developing those foundational addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division skills. Our learning coaches, K to 9 learning coaches, have received some professional development around some of those high impact teaching strategies, and they've been working side by side with classroom teachers to implement those strategies along with our supported resources. We also had an optional Building Thinking Classrooms book club that met 5 times, and we had over 30 teachers participate in that. And it's been exciting to see some of the work they're doing in the classroom as a result of that. And we're continuing that work on those division-supported math manipulative kits that are being added to each math classroom K through 6.
In terms of planned supports as we move forward, we will continue to focus support of the use of math manipulatives in grades 4 to 6, and this will ensure that those foundational math skills are continuing to develop even in the higher grades. We will research and propose a pilot for a universal screener to replace the MIPI, which was an instructional exam that tested outcomes from the previous curriculum. K to 9 learning coaches coordinate support and ongoing attention to numeracy involvement with their ability to work elbow to elbow with teachers. French Immersion Working Group are developing classroom practices and consistencies in administrating the screeners and the assessments. Indication is that they need support both with instruction, but also the way that screeners are administered. So we may see some change in some data points with that support moving forward. We will review and implement effective strategies for division level mentoring. And this includes through cohorts like the new beginning teachers, learning coaches, and the school leadership piece. And of course, leaders will play a really important part as we continue to improve numeracy across the division. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do know from when I've been invited into my schools, there's definitely a shift in positive energy and engagement with the teachers. And so I know that comes from the work that you're doing. So thank you. Anything else? Trustee Buga?
Stacey Buga, Ward 5. Just curious, from that first graph with the grade 3s to the grade 4s seeing a fairly flat level, and with the assumption that it probably is that new curriculum, the shift, the timing, is that expected? I know that there was quite a bit of advocacy done about the timing of the rollout, the combination of COVID and the little guys missing that grade 1, 2, hitting a new curriculum for grade 3. Should that advocacy continue, or is this fairly typical for new curriculum rollout? As I know that our government is still progressing with the K-6 social studies, and then we are looking up to K-12. Is there an opportunity where trustees should be, or do you have access to those working groups to give feedback on the way that things are happening, just to make sure that you are clearly planning ahead and you're finding the issues and you're following them, which is fantastic. But at our level, is there something that we can do to support students across Alberta as well?
I will turn it over to the team, but I will say, Trustee Bucca, I think something that would be very important for the board, because the learning interruption grant, as they're rolling out the new curriculum, because yes, it is very typical when there's new curriculum. And again, we were prepared for that, as the team has spoken about. And so this is typical. However, that learning interruption grant has been very important for us to have this type of intervention. And when you talk about numeracy and literacy, it's very targeted. So this would be something for the board to say that continues, because yes, they're supporting the rollout of curriculum, but the actual learning interruption grant has really been important for that targeted when you're looking at our at-risk children. But I will turn it over to the team to add any additional information.
Yeah, just in addition to that, I think maybe one thing, just as we look towards junior high rollout as well, and one thing that I know that we've been advocating for is perhaps in the future, instead of doing like a 7 to 9 chunk, that we might roll it to grade 7, then grade 8, then grade 9, and then we might be able to reduce that space where kids are getting that gap in their learning based on the transition from old to new curriculum.
Just to follow up, my biggest concern is that these students in grade 3 to 4 may hit that grade 7 and get a new curriculum again. And if there's gaps already, that's going to be a really challenging cohort to see them succeed where they need to, when they're gonna hit a lot of roadblocks. So I appreciate the information so that we can speak in an educated way at our board tables as well.
Trustee Dwyer. Oh, sorry. Trustee Murray Elliott.
Trish Murray Elliott, Ward 4. Thank you for this information. The numbers that really jump out at me on both the graphs for the English and the French immersion are the difference between in grade 1, January 2023 and January 2024. Now, because these are different sets of students, I'm wondering if that shows that, have we done any analysis, like are we doing something in kindergarten now that is bringing them into grade 1 a lot better prepared? How do you account for almost half as many at-risk students? I think that's wonderful.
Pardon me. I certainly think that having an Alberta curriculum for kindergarten will contribute to students being prepared in grade 1, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the hard work of those grade 1 instructors in our division, because they have really worked collaboratively to take on really high leverage learning strategies, including the fluency kits working alongside learning coaches as a particularly amazing group. So it's, I think, on the backs of their hard work, in addition to that curricular piece. To add anything?
Yeah, no, I would just reiterate that. And then just also highlighting that our, if we look at our grade 1s from 2023, moving into that assessment in September of 2023 as well, we're also seeing improvement of those grade 1s moving to grade 2 moving to grade 3. And so I think that's a continuation of that testament to how hard the teachers are working, and that collaborative piece around some division supported resources really helps create that collaboration and energy that you were speaking to in terms of working together and And this data helps feed that energy as well, right? And we see improvement.
Trustee Dwyer?
I just need some help. I like this. I'm just not sure why French immersion is separated out. I haven't grasped that here. If you could just help me with that a little bit, please.
Superintendent.
Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I will turn it over to the team. Just for French immersion, I just want, there's French immersion, it's second language acquisition. It's been around for a very, very long time. And it's important to us to have data about our French immersion kids, because remember, these kids coming in, they don't speak French. They're not Francophone. It's not Francophone curriculum. And so there's a long-standing evidence with French immersion students that they will be behind their English counterparts because their focus coming in, kindergarten, grade 1, is language acquisition. So there's a lag, and they are behind, and then they will catch up and surpass in the end. That's what the long-standing data shows. So just understand that, because remember, their beginning years, they're learning a second language. So it's a very steep learning curve. And so that is why you will see a difference, and you always will, especially in the early years. But I will turn it over to the team to add anything else.
Thank you. And I'd add to that too. When we look at the data for our French immersion students, it was particularly an area of focus. So when we saw 61% of grade 1 students at risk, we needed to focus on that intentionally. And so really pulling that out so that we can measure progress felt very important to the team. So that is as well why we're capturing that data separately.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am going to move on to 8.3, Technology Services Report. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. I would like to welcome Robert here as our Director of Technology Services to provide this report.
Morning, trustees, superintendent. Thank you for allowing me the time to present some of the initiatives that we are working on within the technology team. Technology is constantly evolving at a rapid pace, and what is new today is old tomorrow. Due to this, organizations like ours need to be constantly on top of our technical debt. If an organization does not prioritize technical debt, they risk falling behind on the technology, and practices can become detrimental to the organization. I'm thankful to our current leadership and yourselves for understanding this and supporting this need. I'm very proud of the technical team and the partners like Human Resources and the Educational Technology team you just heard from for helping to roll out the multi-factor authentication. This was complicated by the need to roll out 2 full and separate systems. The staff and school leadership were key to the success of this as the timelines were incredibly short. Because of this work, we are in a much better place when it comes to our security profile. The work on reducing our technical debt and improving our security continues as we standardize on a single enterprise ID. Today, every staff member and student must remember 2 ID password combinations to access their key systems. This effectively doubles the access points for those who wish to cause us harm. Over the coming months, we will be moving to a single ID and password. As well, for many years, we have required that our staff and students maintain 2 separate email systems. This causes confusion and can get in the way of effective communication. We also have many locations where we store our organizational documents, making it a challenge to find information once it's saved. We will be standardizing on the Google technology. This is the same technology that is used within our classrooms and supports the teachers and the administrative staff who use it on a daily basis. As we look to the future of technical debt, I would like to bring your attention to another area we are starting to explore. Our network, the mechanism that all of our electronic data flows over, has been extended over the last few years due to your support. We are now looking at the initial stages of modernizing a few of our schools to bring them in line with the rest of our systems. This will improve our monitoring and security of the Wi-Fi within a few of our schools. Once again, thank you for your time to update you on some of the important work that our technical team is doing to improve our security, simplify our systems, and reducing our overall technical debt. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the report? Trustee Pequin?
So mine's not on the report per se, but you being here is opportune because my parent council's brought up the division supported laptops and how they appreciated buying it from the division because they came programs loaded and blocks on for the students. We don't do that anymore. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of work for our IT team, but I will ask because it was appreciated that the students were blocked off of a lot of things. And then the programs that they needed were already on and they could just buy it from the division and the division kind of took care of all of it. Is that something that's ever going to come back?
Supporting devices that are in the homes is extremely difficult, time consuming, and is wrought full of challenges. Once a device is in an individual's home and they have control over it, the parents have the ability to set the security standards, set the software standards that they feel is appropriate for their home. That can get in the way of our systems, and some things become inaccessible, and in some cases, some things become too accessible. It's a really big challenge to do that. We're not equipped as it stands today to have an external help desk to be able to support the families in all the ways they would need that support from a technical side of things. While it can be considered, we do not have that currently.
And I will just add, just with how fast technology is changing, that this type of laptop for our students, it's very much is everything moves to the cloud, more web-based, that you don't need all of that in a computer, right? And so that's why, as you know, the focus has been in the division to get enough Chromebooks in our schools for our students. So because we are, a couple of our schools, we are unpacking just the unintended consequences of being bring your own device schools for years. But technology has changed so much that you don't have that requirement, right? So of having the actual laptop that has so much software loaded on it, etc. So the shift to Chromebooks and trying to get our devices in the schools for kids is that way because it's just such a quick change and they're much easier to maintain because it doesn't have a ton of software, etc. on it, that they're Chromebooks. So it's also easier for the team to do so. So that's been the evergreening shift to make sure we have the devices, Chromebooks in schools for students to work on.
Steve Briggs.
The Wi-Fi modernization initiative, is there a timeline that you're kind of looking at doing this?
We're at the very early stages of looking into this. We need to put together some plans, some more detailed plans, get some costing. This would be a budgetary request, and so it needs to go through that full process. So at the moment, I do not have a timeline. However, we are doing the investigation to make sure that we do it effectively and in an economical way.
Trustee Pequin.
So our schools that have the bring your own devices, would it be possible to have IT presentations to parents on how to put blocks on them or what they're needed? Because my kids, I buy them a Chromebook, here you go, have at her, because I'm not very technically literate. And we're a bring your own device school, right? So I love that my son's has blocks on it because it was a division purpose one. So that might be something to look into for those schools, just to help our parents know that the Chromebooks that they're required in the bring your own device schools are properly locked for inappropriate material for our kids. Because I'm not computer illiterate, but man, they're smarter than me on every day, my kids are. So that might be something as a professional development for parents, right? And you have the knowledge that we don't.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can we, no, nobody else is coming in for reports. We can take a little break. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. Be back at, well, 11 minutes, 10:45. Thank you. Welcome back. We will resume our meeting at 8.4 Communications Report for February and March 2024. Superintendent Warren.
Chair, Shauna Warren, Superintendent, provided for trustee information is the communications report for February, March. So the focusing on marketing goals 1 and 5 over the last couple of months has been promoting as we opened up our began our blitz in February for our registration for 24-25 and to promote registration for next year. One of the focuses was to grow Legal Public School. And so I hope you all had a chance to listen to some of the testimonials. Also our summer school, that just registration did just open up this week for summer school for this summer. And so that opened up, started this past Monday. Also, as you know, one of the focuses has been to get our website to be user-friendly and to ensure it is up to date. So that has also was a focus to update, looking at different parts of the website. And as we switched over, we had volleyball all-stars, basketball all-stars. There was some focus on some junior high students, getting some quotes from coaches from our inter-school support committee for that's our junior high teams. And of course, Pink Shirt Day. So we had a plethora of pink around the division. It was fantastic. That's another thing. And then just some of our media highlights, how we were captured in the media. And coming up, of course, for April, it is the month of Military Child. And so Teal Up Day is on the 12th. And we are headed into spring break. So that is the communications report.
Thank you. So I sent email just this morning to all and to Superintendent Warren. From Rural Caucus, their website, they have the focus. I think it would be nice if we could put something together to promote something that we're celebrating, just to get us out there, kind of like when we had the drumline come to PSBAA. Just, you hear about the other schools that are doing great things, so I just think we should cheer ourselves on too. So Trustee Briggs.
I love our communication. I think our communication in the division has grown by leaps and bounds. I like how all our schools are being focused. I think it just keeps getting better and better throughout the division. I also did see, I think it was this morning, that our Sturgeon Comp rugby team left for Ireland. So that's pretty exciting. I wish them well.
Trustee Buga.
Stacey Buga, Ward 5. Just in addition to the Redwater Review, the sister paper of that is the Free Press that also has a school section that we are featured in quite regularly as well. So I don't know if there's a link if they have an online presence, but I know it gets mailed out to all the houses in Bourneville.
Thank you. 8.5. Oh, sorry, Trustee Pequin.
Sorry, Jenny Peckman, Ward 1. I just love seeing the division sharing those student athletes. That was a lot of the parents were sharing it from the Sturgeon Public Schools, and it's a little humble brag moment for those parents. So I love that it's not just the school sharing it, it's the division sharing.
8.5 quarterly financial report for Q2. Superintendent Warren.
You Chair, Shauna Warren, Superintendent, and I will turn it over to the Associate Superintendent Corporate Services.
Thank you, Sean Nicholson, Associate Superintendent Corporate Services. So attached is the Q2 update as of February 29th, 2024. Depending on what you are, or what kind of line item you're looking at, we should be somewhere between 50 and 60%, just if it's over 12 or 10 months. Currently revenues are at 52 and expenses are at 51. You can see there's a little table in the report to show some kind of changes in revenue from things we have gotten since the approved spring budget, and some the school nutrition was announced, so that is future coming. It's already come to date, but just as of the date of this report, it was not there. In the attached report, we added some tables by month on the second page. I think what I want to say is I like reports like this because it kind of helps highlight certain things and sometimes things that are wrong. So you may notice some things that are wonky in here that we're looking to clean up and correct. For instance, I will just highlight gifts and donations and fundraising. The percentage is really high. The division has historically had a practice of budgeting really low for that. I'm not sure why. So that's something we'll correct moving forward. In the graph on page 2, you will see that the revenues shoot up in the month of November, and we're going to go back and correct that, but that is because ultimately our revenues weren't recorded for the first 2 months. That all got recorded in November. So these are kind of things that I've highlighted through this report that we will be working to clean up and make sure don't happen in the future. Besides that, we are looking like we are on track to date so far. Obviously, with tweaks here and there, I'll leave it to the trustees if they have any questions.
Trish Marie Elliott, Ward 4. I like this report, and it gives us comparisons to look at. The outliers is definitely something we look at, but I think things like gifts and donations and fundraising might not necessarily be something we can count on every year. So that's understandable. I just wonder what does other revenues mean? It's not a significant amount, but just wondering what that would include.
Thank you, trustee. So other revenues would be our ASB payout that we received, as well as we're making some adjustments because some secondments should be in other revenues, revenue we get for secondments that aren't Alberta Ed related. So those will be moved over there shortly as well too.
Trustee Pequin.
Jeanine Pequin, Ward 1, financial statements are not my wheelhouse. So our Q1 forecast and our Q2 forecast, those are like cumulative and not in Q1 we were expecting this, in Q2 we're expecting this much more. They're a cumulative total.
Yes, so ideally, in my previous division, what we did, now we don't have all the practices in place, but we would actually open up the budget file every quarter for everyone and ask them for updates where they think they're going to be. We give out the money, obviously, to our principals and our department heads to manage. So ideally, those would be the cumulative changes for the year. So every quarter, in an ideal world, we're not quite there, but we would go to them and say, okay, we've given you this money, last May, it's now December. Do you still have plans to spend that money? Has things changed? Have plans changed? How have they changed? We asked for that information and we roll it up to the board to kind of inform you of operationally what's changed at this level. That's where I'd like to get to. Now, these changes mostly in the Q2 have been made by me, by things I found going through reviewing stuff that needed to be updated. But eventually I'd like to get to a place where we're getting input from the people actually spending the dollars and how their plans have changed so we can inform the board. Make sense?
Trustee Pequin.
Thank you. And for somebody, like I said, these are foreign. I appreciate you pointing out where the anomalies are because I'm not always well versed in finding them. And I know they seem to have been hidden sometimes, so I appreciate you pointing them out. That is a very nice lesson in transparency.
One more thing I want to mention is these are kind of structured. Well, page 1 is like our financial statements, because I think it's also important to, the more I can put that information in front of you guys, the more familiar it is. So when you get to year end, A, you're not having any surprises, and B, you're a little bit more familiar with it to know what's going on and actually understand. So that's kind of where we're shifting, with keeping in mind that at this point in time, we can only do so much until we fix some things as well too. So yeah.
I appreciate yours and your team's hard work in your first quarter, our second quarter. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions out there? Okay. We will move on to 8.6, 2023-2024 Superintendent Discretionary Fund. Superintendent Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So provided for the board to see is the monthly Superintendent Discretionary Fund report. And so this one is a very minor change, this one, and it's actually a refund. So from February 22nd to March 13th, that there's actually a refund because there was one individual that was not able to attend that STEAM PD. So you all just heard that. They did just all attend it. We did have admin council yesterday, and I also got emails back from our lead teachers and from across the division who attended that. They were very excited, but one of them was not able to attend. We did shift things around to make sure we had representation across the division. This report includes a refund of $599.
Thank you. 8.7 Superintendent Report. Superintendent Warren.
Chair, Shauna Warren, Superintendent, again provided as it is monthly for the board to review. It is my report that is based on the SLQS.
Trustee Peckman.
In your report, you talk about moving away from Vitra to a new acronym, ARTO. Can we get some more information on that? Because we've heard about Vitra for the last few years and how we are partners with the communities, other like the police and all of that. Does this new one, are we still partnering with all of those community partners? Just, we've heard a lot about Vitra and this one kind of shocked me.
It's just a name change. So the partnership is not changing. It's just they're shifting away from that name, but the partnership and our signed agreement is still staying the same. The training, it's just a acronym change that was asked if they could do that for the group that initiated it. So it's exactly the same thing. It's just changing the name. And we are very proud of the relationship and the collaboration we have with that agreement with our partners.
Trustee Briggs. Unless it was a follow-up.
Kind of just thank you for that, because I read that and got panicked, like, why are we, no, but a name change for everybody is super great, so thank you.
Trustee Briggs.
It says that you made a significant change to the central office meeting rooms. Can you give us a little highlight of what the names are and just so we know where we're going if we have to go somewhere?
Yes, well, we'll give you a little map. So just so you know, with the renovation, when it happened here, the meeting rooms were actually like it's corporate services, ed services, but we've shifted people around. And so instead of going by team, we thought, how about we go back to how it used to be? Because we have the Coronado room, we had Hill Point, etc. So we were just talking to senior team because it was getting confusing to say ed services meeting room when ed services is now upstairs. So we thought, but if we move away from the team names and go back we went and looked at the Sturgeon School Division map from 1939, as you know, that we've seen. The original is actually hanging in Mr. Conrad's office. And we thought, well, let's be cool and let's look at some names of some of our old one-room schoolhouse, etc. So I could bring a summary to you if your boardroom name has not changed. It's just to provide clarity so that we're not saying the meetings in the corporate services room, but corporate services is not upstairs anymore. So it was just to move away from naming it to the team names because we had shifted since the original modernization, or not modernize. What did we do here? It's kind of a complete rebuild of this building.
I think that's really nice that we're incorporating some history into our facility. Also, you have division newsletter on there. Do we have a division newsletter? I thought we're having a few hiccups with our division newsletter.
Yes, thank you. And we are looking at a different platform because they're currently working on updating it, and it should be coming soon. And that is the communications team. Because as you know, it was often going into people's junk mail. So they're trying to troubleshoot that because it was becoming too much work. And then parents, some people were seeing it and they couldn't get it to default to not go to people's junk mail. And there was a lot of barriers. So we're working on the best way right now, and they're getting close to having a new format coming out.
Trustee Marie Elliott?
Commissioner Marie Elliott, Ward 4. So just to clarify, is there a division newsletter at this time or is there not?
No, they are directing people to the website and to schools. So because it was through, what was that called? I forget the platform. Chipmunk? Remember? I don't remember.
Trustee Marie?
Okay, so I really like this report because it highlights all the great things that are happening in the division. I really like the appreciation of our subs. How many subs do we have that we appreciated?
That is a great question. I'm not sure we have a total because it just happened, but because we get them back, but do we have a rough number? Lisa, how many subs we have?
We sent out 150 cards throughout the division and we will get some back. I do believe we're sitting at around 135 subs on our sub list.
And if I could follow up to that, I was just a bit disappointed that trustees weren't invited to share in that lovely initiative of appreciating our subs, because we do take part in a lot of the appreciation of our staff and whatnot. So, and then further to that, I was thinking there's a few things that the trustees could have been more included in, such as, well, we heard about transportation services, why we weren't invited to that, but even things like the central office bake-off or the squadron business luncheon or the great trip down to the Prairie Rose School Division. So if we can, and even this morning when they talked about the STEAM for the division and how they would update us when it was over, like we used to be invited to take part in those things. So just a reminder that there's lots of places to make sure that we're involved.
I just need to clarify the STEAM PD.
No, they were planning a STEAM games,
Oh,
games
STEAM
they
game.
call it. Yeah, yeah, we used to participate in that and it was always a lot of fun.
I would like some clarification on this. So first of all, that squadron luncheon, the mayor had just reached out to me to ask me to go. So that was not me that I had a choice. Also to go down south, that would be a very expensive trip for us to take as a whole team. So, and again, if that is the board, but I would need to know if it's the will of the board. For our substitute teachers, substitute appreciation week, it happens every year. So if we are acknowledged people, I think that the board would need to discuss if it is the will of the board, what does that look like? It was not an event that was during that week that our subs were appreciated in the individual schools. Central office just contributed the little to support our schools so that it was uniform across the division. We did the same thing last year. And sorry, that STEAM games have not happened yet. So they're coming up. That information will come to you. And if there's judging or whatever, when that comes, you will be getting information. Our STEAM games are in May. And we did not have a division in-person one last year. So this will be our first one bringing it back coming out of COVID. But moving forward, I will need to know what is the will of the board as to what the board contributes to, because right now you have defined what is actually board sponsored, like the staff recognition, et cetera. So I think that the board will need to have, could I just request have future discussions?
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to, because our staff appreciation is, and the Christmas is what we've indicated for. So if that's something we need to look at when we look at how we're going to allocate our appreciation budget, we can look at that. Trustee Briggs?
just a correction, not Christmas, just staff appreciation. We didn't do a Christmas function this year. That was under,
We did the cards. We did the cards.
yeah, we did
and
the
the
cards,
chocolate.
yeah.
So that's a
But not a
staff
luncheon.
No, but we did staff appreciation. Steve Buba.
Stacy Beagle, Ward 5. I just wanted to comment on that 408 Squadron business luncheon. Mayor of Sturgeon County did post on her social media, and I was super proud to see our superintendent, the mayor of Sturgeon County, and the chief of Alexander together on base, supporting military as a group. I thought that was a fantastic opportunity, and I'm glad that we're being invited to the table for these kinds of conversations, because I think that's beautiful thing to see in our community of those groups working together. So great job. I don't know if we want to include those kinds of things in our media reports, but or our marketing reports, but we are being shared by other spaces as well.
Trustee Pequin.
One last comment. This building futures thing sounds super exciting. And just as a future reference, I would love some follow-up feedback on that about what it is. And I've heard a little bits about it in this report, so I'm excited to see it in here and I'm excited to see what it looks like.
We will move on to 8.8 Administrative Procedure 210. Superintendent Warren.
And this is as policy 300 came forward. This is the AP, the original AP was brought forward. It was AP 210, role of school administration. And so this was part of regular review. And that AP has now been updated, as was brought to the board alongside that policy. So this is just as information. And this new AP was also shared with our school administration yesterday at Admin Council.
Any questions? Thank you. 8.9 Admin Procedure 205, Developing Administrative Procedures. Superintendent Warren.
Chair, Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So AP 205, as part of our regular review of administrative procedures, it was up for regular review. And so in looking at the AP and then looking at our process to ensure that we are, just like with your policy development, that we're taking it to our leadership to look at it, to ensure that it's clear. We want to make sure that it was, looking at it, we felt that it was missing some information. So it has been updated to be a little more wholesome as to getting feedback and make sure that it aligns with current division practices. And of course, that they are attached to policy.
Any questions? Thank you. 8.10 Administrative Procedure 435, Employee Expense Claims and Reimbursement. Superintendent Warren.
Chair, Shauna Warren, Superintendent. So this AP, this was also brought to the board to let you know that it was coming. This was reviewed, this AP, and I can turn it over to our associate corporate services, just to, as the timeline, we have communicated this out to our staff, and you have seen it. We did walk the board through the why, and all of our staff has been communicated on this.
Mike was still on. Associate Superintendent Corporate Services. Yeah, that's just for information. We will be making the update as of April 1st to align with the government regulation and standards, Government of Alberta. I haven't heard too much from employees on this. Only one complaint really that I got addressed, but yeah, that's where we're at. The trustees have any questions?
I just want to make a note. I believe it's board policy 225 is where it's captured the mileage for trustees, which is the CRA rate, which will stay the same till we review that board policy and decide what the will of the board is for that. If we align with what our staff are, or if we stay at the CRA rate. It is 225, isn't it? Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, 9.1 Chair's Report. It is included in on the website. I believe that's where they go. March was busy. March 2nd, I was a trustee panelist for the ATA political engagement seminar, and they just wanted to know what qualifications you need to be a trustee, what the election process is like, campaigning, how to recruit as a teacher, how would we go about recruiting, or how they would go about recruiting someone to run as a school trustee. And it's just they're starting their workup rollout as a ATA in for the election next September. Rural caucus meeting. That was they're trying to get more organized, which I gave them Janine's email address as our representative. So I made sure that they had it and it was correct. So hopefully you start getting rural caucus information. What else is different? March 7th, I was asked by Mayor Deck to go to see MLA Nally and Superintendent Warren and Associate Superintendent of Corporate Services, Sean Nicholson, came with me. The town was just pitching to MLA Nally their future plans, their growth. They had a town map and brought our MOU, MOU to him to let him know that we're working together. So it was more their meeting than it was their meeting. They just wanted us there. I listened on March 12th to the education minister standing before the Standing Committee on Families and Communities for their budget estimates. A lot of questions came out of that around the capital planning, the capital projects announcements, getting clarification on those things. Because we saw that there's quite a few projects going into the large metro areas of Edmonton and Calgary, because that's where they're going to see, or they have seen already, substantial growth. And listening to what school boards have said through the province, to be aware when they have their campaign of Come to Alberta, which they know is Alberta has the highest, what do they call it? Internal migration into Alberta, and not very many migrating out of Alberta. So they did hear us when we had said, not only do you have to think about housing for them, you have to think about schools for the children to go to. They have seen a 20,000 increase in population in Calgary alone. So that's why they said Calgary got a lot of projects awarded them. March 14th, I went to the ICE presentation that was tacked onto the Lanning Trail parent conversation. I finally got to my ICE presentation. It was very, very good. I'm very glad that I don't have a small child growing up now, because I would be a wreck. Yesterday, March 18th, I went to the ASBA board chair working session with Alberta Education Ministry. I took our 2 senior admins with me because I knew they were going to ask operational questions that I couldn't answer. So it was all around their policy on pronouns and informing parents, counseling, what else? Resources. So we broke into small groups. We were with Black Gold, Clearwater, and Northern Gateway. Northern Gateway? Yeah, Northern Gateway. So relatively rural. We said to them right now, like our schools, we feel are doing a great process of that. We talked about not tying hands of our staff in policy and not putting our staff in a liability position, because teachers are teachers. Teachers aren't psychologists and counselors. Their counseling is on career pathway and education. They talked with the counseling pilot. The consensus was, please don't run a pilot if you're not going to sustain it, because it's all fine and dandy that you run a pilot and you give money for a pilot and then you take the money away and the pilot's actually working well. The question back was, well, what if it's not working well? It's like the same as the curriculum. If it's not working well, then you go back to the table and fix what needs to be fixed. So they're just taking feedback. There's another engagement session like this in this April, I think. So yeah, they're just getting board input on, well, school input really is what it is, because they're the ones that operationalize it. Yeah. And after this, I'm going to go down to Lanny Trails parent conversations and their ASCA presentation. And that's my report. Trustee Briggs.
My board report has been submitted in the package. I just want to make 2 additions. One of them was on March 7th, the Council of School Councils, and of course, today, the board meeting.
Trustee Dwyer.
Just a couple things that came up in the parent council thing. One was a little confusion around what this means for our playing ground assessment and the value of repairs is done. It was reported to council that our division puts some money towards a little bit to certain things, but I think in Camilla it was like a 30 something or $40,000 that we as a community need to contribute. And that became quite an interesting conversation because worried about stability of that, because we know every 5 years the standards of something changes and something has to be improved, and can a fundraising aspect of the school keep up with that? And really that's all we'll ever fundraise for if that's the case. And I can't imagine some of the other schools that have a huge, and the other question came out of that, what if we don't do it? What does that mean? And is there certain things in there if we don't do, they're shutting the playground down, or does it mean that, what does it mean? And so that was pretty evident, and I agree with them. I worry about sustainability of something like that for our community, because that's all we'd fundraise for, really, when it comes down to it. And then another confusion thing, and I think now, to be fair, both our representatives and myself weren't at the school councils, but it came up about insurance. And that brought in some confusion again, too, because we just finished talking about that and all of a sudden it's changed in some way or form. And then another confusion part of that was that the treasurer for the high school is now a member of, she's not with the high school anymore, and she's with our group in Camilla. And she said they've paid every year for insurance. So that, okay, what does that mean? And so just some confusion around that whole thing. And what does it mean? I would imagine there's probably some parent councils out there that their whole fundraising is going to go to insurance and some years, and why even be a group if that's the case? So it's things that I guess need to be answered in the future somehow. And what does that mean? So that's all I have to report.
And both of those things did come up to Council of School Councils. I don't think we've got minutes out to them yet, so that's
I
probably,
don't know.
probably why too.
Like I said, to be fair, we weren't that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so there is, it's Sturgeon Heights. There's two schools that are getting together, and MPS and Sturgeon Heights that are getting together at the ASCA conference to put a position statement forward for advocacy for maintenance for playgrounds, because we don't get maintenance money, and yet we have to maintain playgrounds. Yeah, and can I ask this Associate Superintendent of Corporate Services to answer the insurance thing? Okay, okay.
We've directed all of our, this is not your school council, this is your fundraising
Or
society. So just to be clear about that. So we have directed them all to reach out to Sean to talk to the insurance company, because they have to, if they're doing a casino, they have to have insurance, because that's a lot of dollars. But it's now, there's no difference from what there was in the past. If you have a few $1,000s in a bank account, you look at the risks, you talk to the insurance company, and then the PFA, they would make the decision to bring it. Sorry, PFA does not make decisions. They would talk, school council would decide, what's the benefits and risks, but they were to reach out. So an email did go out following out, but if they're doing a casino, if they're bringing in large amounts of money, then for that piece, they should have insurance. And they were provided some rates in an email, but we can bring that back to the board as information to the next meeting.
just another question that came up. So does that mean, I think we reflected to a bill that was passed within the government that it looked like it covered those associations? Does that mean that we didn't read the bill properly, or has that been changed?
Interpretation of the bill at that time, our school councils they are as volunteer, but as soon as the interpretation of the bill is not changed, but interpreting it and working with the insurance companies to actually look at the bill, just when you're talking about the fundraising association, it actually does not. So this would be with our new associate superintendent of corporate services and sitting down with our insurance company and actually unpacking it. Even though we did a lot of work to believe that Bill 58 did cover certain things, but when you're dealing with that large amount of money, you should have additional insurance.
I think it's really good that we get clear on this, and maybe we need more information, but additional insurance, is that, what does that mean? Like someone's gonna say, what does that mean? The bill don't cover it all or covers a portion? What does that mean? And so if we can get some answers for that, it's really confusing for our fundraising groups here in this request.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important that you get them in touch with, direct them to.
Yeah, and that's probably, maybe that's
Yeah.
what Jonathan sent out. I'm not sure. That's what.
Trustee Buga?
I was just going to say, if we've got the minutes from the cost, because we didn't even follow the agenda. We ended up sitting in playgrounds and insurance we went over time just having that robust conversation around it and what concerns were, and tons of questions being answered. So if we can get the minutes out and make sure that all of us see them as well as the school councils, so that we can really support our school councils and our fundraising associations in that way too. There was a lot of conversation and a lot of information, and just so that we are all understanding it clearly would be great.
Yeah, I just they want to be clear. That's all, because it's confusing what's going on.
Okay.
So
Trustee Pequin?
I apologize for my report not being sent in time. I completely forgot. So I have done it quickly. Things that I attended, I did attend the Redwater School open house. Which I think is one of the first times Redwater School has done an open house. So it was great to see that they are trying. And then just the same with everything else. Insurance did take a lot of my parent councils. So, nobody looks forward to those conversations, and I worry about the consequences of losing those casinos, our schools losing that $20,000, $25,000, because the one council said, well, we're not fundraising to pay insurance, so we'll just fold. So they were reaching out to Sean for more information, but that is a giant concern I have for those schools, because fundraising is hard and the casino is easy. Zone 2-3 is coming up. I also apologize for not forwarding the agenda. I have done that now. I'll talk about things to note down the line. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Murray Elliott.
Trish Marie Elliott, Ward 4. My report has been submitted. Basically, everything is the same except for my school council meeting at Sturgeon Heights. I think as you all saw from the COSC meeting, Sturgeon Heights has a very robust and vocal council who is very happy to share their opinions and experiences. So I'll just give you some highlights from that meeting that took place earlier this week. The good news is the ICE presentation that we have booked for April 10th already has over 50 registrations, 50. I think that's a huge amount. So I'm not sure if they're going to open it up to other schools. I think that depends how full it gets. And the school had its annual cereal box drop, which is where they line up boxes of cereals like Domino's around the school and then give it a push and watch it go. There was a new record of over 700 boxes, which were then donated to the food bank, who very much appreciates a large donation at this time of year because they get a little bare at this time of year. And Ms. Wing's class won the prize for the most boxes of over 69.
Video of it.
Oh, is it? Where was that?
On theirs.
Oh, maybe someday I'll sign up for it. We were shared the playground audit figures, and we win the prize of having the highest number in the division, which is neither a win nor a prize, because it comes down to over $51,000. So that breaks down into about $9,000 of division covered costs, $11,000 that would have to be covered by the school. And the one that floored everybody, as we've discussed before, was the $31,000 cost for sand. And as soon as that figure came out, the reaction in the room was, well, we have dump trucks, we have skid steers, we can go pick up sand, we can. So my thoughts on that was, it is my understanding that the division is looking at cheaper options, and I feel like we shouldn't encourage our councils to run out and do it themselves until we've exhausted those possibilities. So that's where we are on that one. Hopefully we will come up with some better insurance. And that was a bit of a tough one because the first I heard of this was the exact same time the parents heard of this. So they're a great school council, and the PFA did immediately reach out to our division, and they do have quotes on insurance. So what it came down to was $569 for liability, $454 for officers and directors, and $153 for the crime and fraud, which I think would apply to, the casino money that disappeared or whatnot. So, but there were so many questions and confusion because they thought this had been cleared up. Why can't they just be listed under one of our policies? Like Stacy said, we would really appreciate some clarification. And personally, I think if we could just have something in the next trustee notes or the talking notes that just really explains things. So my question here, I guess, is, if we're only worried about the crime and fraud aspect, do they have to get the liability and the officers and directors insurance? And like, how does that all work? And did we not get legal clarification? Maybe I don't recall correctly on last year that that was the reason we were quite comfortable with this, because the lawyer agreed that we were covered. I'm not sure if we were that route or not. But if we could get something really specific that we can share with our parents, that would be fantastic. And the last thing that came up was the sponsorship crests on the jerseys, where at, I believe it was at cost, it was quite clear that they were told no due to the fact that we're a publicly funded organization, to which the immediate response this week was there are other local publicly funded divisions that do allow these crests on their on the jerseys. And this local company that did donate $2,200 to us does deal with sports injuries, and they're very involved in this sort of thing, and they're trying to expand their donation program. So I'm just wondering if we could maybe clarify if this is perhaps just a division preference, that we don't want maybe one school having crests and another not. I don't know, because they weren't really okay with the publicly funded response that we gave them. So. And that's basically it from the school council.
I know with football, when they get corporate sponsorship, they do it through their advertisement, through their social media, and they do, because yes, it's a bigger audience, so they have programs, so they put it in their programs, so that they're not having to put it on. That's one way that I know that football does it, but I will ask Superintendent Warren if she can bring back information, or
Yeah, we will bring back information, but I just want to clarify as a board, if it's the will of the board that you would like that to change, but something to think about is public school division. You put it on our jerseys aren't replaced every couple of years. And so we have to be very mindful. It's just like we don't promote private businesses as a school division. We don't do that. We love our donations, we love our people, but when we're going out into other communities, that company is now being promoted. That is not our role. And so that is what we have to be mindful of, right? When we go into, it's not in our division. We wear those jerseys when we play in other divisions. But if that is something that the board would like to reconsider, if that is not, we have to decide if that's the will of the board, you think we should change that. But that has been long standing because as soon as you put it on a jersey and it goes out there, it's actually being promoted. Just because it's on a jersey, the public does not know how that name landed on the jerseys. And so that's why we've been very intentional that it's a plaque on a wall with a description, just like this board has wanted us to always acknowledge our people that donate money to our division, that it is done so it's clear as to what it is. But when it's a name on a jersey and it's out there, then we're actually promoting private businesses out in the community or community at large across the province, or it could be international or nationally. So that's where that comes from, but that is very long-standing about that. I don't know if you want to add anything about insurance or.
So yeah, for the insurance piece, they were required to have insurance under ASB before. That really hasn't changed. We actually have insurance for volunteers ourselves, extra coverage. The piece for me that's the most important is the general liability piece. When a fundraising association registers, they become their own entity and technically should have insurance to cover things, especially when they're not. When they're registered and they have members and a board, it's not always under the purview of the principal. They do their fundraising and then maybe give money to the school division to purchase things, whatever. So kind of what they do is kind of their own responsibility. The $2 million liability coverage is especially important when they're going to be coming onto our property and doing things that we may not officially have control over, and it aligns with our kind of ARMIC rules as well too for those things. So although the other two are important, especially if you're doing casinos and there's other requirements, the CGL is the most important in my opinion, especially when they're coming onto our properties and buildings. Otherwise, then we're liable if something goes wrong.
Trustee Maria? Yeah, and follow up to that. Thank you. And if we could just put a blurb like that in our trustee notes so that we can all have the same